Hello everyone, I'm Patrick Arnold, analyst at ARC, here at the ARC Industry Leadership Forum in Orlando. And today I'm sitting down with Sachin Vasudeva, VP of Product Management at ZEDEDA. Thanks so much for being here today. First thing I wanted to ask you was, with all of the discussion around robotics and AI and software-defined automation, how is ZEDEDA serving these needs, and what kind of additions have you made to your portfolio in that case?
Thank you for the question, Patrick. First of all, I'm very happy to be here. What we are doing, right, in our portfolio is we are bringing, starting with AI assistants, right? Let's make sure we have a co-pilot that brings the ability to bring operational views very quickly, but it doesn't stop there. So, when a customer finds a challenge or a problem in their topology, in the devices, in the edge, we can also help remediate some of these very quickly. We help troubleshoot it faster. So that starts the journey on automation, right? And then secondly, we are also bringing additional capabilities around orchestration. So, moving from Docker Compose to Kubernetes, scaling and fleet management. So this starts to then enable further AI deployments. Kubernetes is probably likely the most, the best technology suited for AI, especially when it comes to chipset manufacturers. They're bringing already out-of-the-box Kubernetes solutions that map back to the chips. So we are enabling all of that as well. So not just AI assistants and integrating the latest technologies like MCP servers, however, also stepping back and then bringing Kubernetes.
Mm-hmm. Very interesting. Yeah. And another common refrain that I've seen here is the workforce issues. I mean, every year it's cited as one of the big problems for industry. In what kind of ways is ZEDEDA tackling, making workers that they have more productive, covering up for any workforce gaps, things like that?
Great question. So first and foremost, this is a general problem across many industry verticals. So, so how do we want to address this? First and foremost, help our customers bring some sort of a subject matter expertise that's baked into an AI and help deploy that. So, for example, in the energy and oil sector, right, the SME here is a drill master. Their job is to go and get drills and get the drill operations going, and then understand for 30 years of experience is baked into this, where you're understanding, the breadth and the depth of the drill that's going, and taking action in the field, right? Now, taking that and automating that and bringing that expertise back into an AI system and an AI agent becomes interesting, and also helps the customer then, prioritize this as a solution. Even if it gets you, 50, 60% there, now they can really offload these existing drill masters and really help sort of scale this solution over time. So, we want to sort of help get to that in sort of incremental steps. Make sure there's guardrails along with it. And as that journey happens, we learn, our customer learns, and ultimately it becomes an agent-to-agent solution. And over time, right, this is where we can help bring some humans in the loop as well, and sort of continue on that journey.
Absolutely. And speaking of the journey, we are in a new year here, 2026. Based on what you've accomplished in 2025, what kind of initiatives can you share with us for the year?
Absolutely. So first and foremost, we built the foundation for a lot of moving parts and building blocks for orchestration. So I mentioned Kubernetes in 2025, we launched that. And now this year we plan to bring model operations and AI model management on top. So what that means is take existing models, help bring a level of management, whether it's versioning them, whether it's understanding the dependencies of these models that map back to the hardware, the chipsets, and then helping them deploy with extreme ease. So a lot of times, models get trained in the data center and the centralized cloud with a lot of data coming in, but the deployment happens and the inferencing happens at the edge. And so how do we make sure that the inferencing gets done fast? So that's the starting point for us for the journey here. Second, there are mixed critical workloads. So there's real-time workloads, there's non-real-time workloads. So how do we bring both together and enable that as well? So those will be like the two big, large focus areas for us.
Yeah, so when you're talking edge and cloud, I know a lot of folks will think cybersecurity. Could you tell us a little bit more about ZEDEDA's cybersecurity philosophy and any partnerships or anything you may have on that line?
Absolutely. So ZEDEDA was born out of a need for having security at the edge. So security is built into our product by design. It's what we call first-class citizen in terms of the notion of taking security first approach to everything we do. So it started with our operating system, which is an open source project at LFEdge. And we built attestation, measured boot, securely sort of locking down the interfaces when you install the OS, and having a layered attestation, not just at the root level, but all the way up to the application as well. So once we've gone past that, then it becomes interesting when you deploy models, when you bring capabilities, new capabilities, you're also then doing guardrails around this. So for one example is if you want to do model security, you have to encrypt the models as well. So it's not enough to encrypt data at rest that we do today, but then how do we encrypt the model at rest as well? So these become super interesting over time.
Yeah, very interesting. Another thing I wanted to ask, with a lot of these new solutions around robotics, AI, software-defined automation, there is a huge new emphasis on partnerships and strategic alliances. Do you have anything like that you can share on ZEDEDA's terms?
Yeah, partnerships, ecosystems, these are extremely important aspects to growing, a company, especially where the dependency is on your adjacent, solutions. So our customers, for example, or let's take the same customer on the energy sector side for oil and gas. If we bring a purpose-built solution for the edge, which is focused on orchestrating workloads, we need to then work with the applications on the same format where the application can come in either as a virtual form factor or as a containerized form factor, right? And we need to understand the requirements for the application from a bandwidth point of view, from a latency point of view, from a infrastructure resource point of view, and make sure that the application does not experience any bad sort of quality of experience from that angle while it's doing its purpose. So now that's one part of the ecosystem. So the application awareness and the context awareness for these applications is super important for us. So that's part of the ecosystem we're building. Second, there's a dependency on the southbound side of it, which is the hardware manufacturers, from ODMs, OEMs, as well as the chip themselves. So we have to sort of segment out working closely with the chip manufacturers to bring the latest and greatest inference engine dependencies, SDKs, libraries in Linux, all of these capabilities, bring them forward as a hardware abstraction concept as much as possible. And then secondly, with the ODM vendors in terms of the peripherals that they put on the devices, on the gateways, from sensors to BMC solutions, which are doing sort of out-of-band monitoring. All of these capabilities have to be built in as part of an ecosystem play for us. So it's a northbound ecosystem from applications, it's a southbound ecosystem from dependencies on hardware and ODM partners.
Okay, well, it sounds like I've got an exciting year to look forward to for ZEDEDA. Thanks so much. I'm Patrick Arnold at ARC, speaking with Sachin Vasudeva from ZEDEDA. Thanks so much for watching, and we'll see you next time.